at 30, I started planning, you know, what was I going to do? And the only thing I knew of that I had never, ever gotten tired of in my life was hunting and fishing. This picture right here is the first deer that I ever killed. This is what's hard to believe. Most people's first deer is not a 10 point, but my first deer was a 10 point. And on top of that, it didn't come off an expensive deer lease. It came off of a $20 a day lease up by Uvalde. My daddy set me down beside a sawed-off cedar tree and told me to sit there until he came and got me. And this deer walked out, and I had a open sight Savage 30-30 rifle, and it held 4 shots. And I shot this deer, and he went down. I don't think that my dad ever killed a deer as big as this one. You know, everybody in their life, you know, has a hero. My dad didn't go anywhere that I wasn't with him. You know, he was my mentor. He still is. I mean, there's a thing he wrote to me, and he's telling about, you know, how proud he was of me. And he basically wrote that on his deathbed. Saw an advertisement in the newspaper that said, "Make a living hunting and fishing." So I said, well, I gotta at least try this. It's gotta be some kind of gimmick, but I'm gonna try it. These guys were from Denver, so they knew absolutely nothing at all about Texas or Texas hunters. They were interviewing in their apartment. They didn't even have an office. It was direct sales. If you didn't make a sale, you didn't make $1. From that job, I learned about associations and how they work. And at the time, BASS, Bass Angler Sportsman Society, had just gotten started, and it was growing, and it was very popular. I thought, well, if he can do that with bass, then why can't I do that with white-tailed deer here in Texas? I'd won a rifle as a sales incentive, and that literally was the first seed money. First deal was a name, had to have a name, had to have a logo. Kind of interesting about the logo, I drew one half of it and folded the paper over and traced it so that the left side looked just like the right side. So that's how the original double drop tine was created, was just pencil and paper. Why did you choose that particular deer, the way he was shaped and the points he had and so on and so forth? And the answer to that is, in those days, in the early 70s, a deer with even one drop tine was a real bragging deer, you know. I knew the thing had to have double drops. And I wanted it to be a natural stand-up 6x6 12-point deer, which it is. And that was sort of the issue behind the design was because of that, it was popular. As you know today, that logo is kind of a household, kind of like Texas A&M logo in a way. In the late 80s, it got pretty popular, and you started seeing a lot of it on pickup trucks when you're driving down the freeway and stuff like that. And if you had somebody with you, they'd say, "Hey, there's one of your logos." Whatever I have decided to do, whatever trail I decided to go on, I am never going back up. To me, it wasn't a big impossible thing to achieve, starting the Texas Hunting Association. So.
I found out about Texas trophy hunters in 1975 when Jerry was thinking about putting it together. I went to his first I guess you'd call it formal gathering. I don't know, maybe 20 or 25, I can't remember exactly how many, but wasn't too many people, and we met in the Tropicana Hotel in San Antonio.
Just people that I knew around town, like Braden Wire Metal, been here forever. C.E. Blackwell, he's the guy who invented the first tripod stand. But I just told those guys, we're going to have this convention, and we've got some space. If y'all want to bring something to show off your products and whatnot, well, because they were magazine advertisers. But when it came to that, it was a whole different deal.
And that's when he kind of, I guess you'd say, sprang it on us that he was going to start this Texas Trophy Hunters Association. As far as the public announcement of it that he actually made to the group, I was right there in the Tropicana Hotel. He had made up his mind he was going to do something.
The first event, these days we call it Hunters Extravaganza, was called Convention. And it was held out at the Tropicana Hotel downtown San Antonio on the Riverwalk. We did that a couple of years, and next thing I know, they're telling me, you ought to be charging us for booth space. He said, this helps our business and it costs you money to have us here. This thing is popular. I mean, people are going by and visiting, and I want to buy one of those. And the only thing akin was to that in those days was a boat show. There wasn't no such thing as a hunting show. We did create that industry. I don't care what anybody says. We created that industry. Those early years, meaning 75, 76, around in there, the company was operated out of a trailer house on Prue Road. It can't be anything other than just pure dedication. Because hey, me and my boys, we had some hard times during those times. I mean, we lived in an apartment house and barely got by, and there were times that the income was so low, the employees got paid, and at that time wasn't one or two of them, you know. But JG just had to hang on until something came in. The employees always came first. We held the first extravaganza in the city of Houston. It was like a wrestling arena. I was down there kind of leading the team in the middle of the hall, and Danny called me on the radio, and he told me with urgency, you need to get up here. I thought somebody had gotten hurt, fell down, or whatever. We had a problem, or fight, or whatever, you know, you don't know. From down there, you could look up there, and all the light where the entryway was just dark, because it was just solid people. He said, go through the people and walk out front. And I was on the radio, and I said, yeah, I see what you mean. I said, they've got to be a block and a half long. I remember thinking, we got this down. This is going to be good.
When Jerry first started Texas Trophy Hunters and the Hunters Hotline, it was about 15 or 16 pages long.
I recall there were, I think, 5,000 copies printed. I've got 3 or 4 copies of it, I guess, but you just don't see that first issue. And why I didn't keep a box of them, I don't have a clue. One thing I do remember is going to the post office box. I used to have dreams that there were going to be so many new members in there that I'd have to have a basket to take them home, but it never did happen. But that was a big deal, is seeing how you did week by week.
I didn't write very much for him in the beginning. This was mainly white-tailed deer, with some antelope and some mule deer. Other people who were strictly involved with white-tailed deer, like Charlie Winkler and Al Brothers and Larry Weishen and people like that, they ended up writing for him before I did.
If you look back at the people that wrote for the publication, they were all expert in one area or another. Bob Zeglins and James Crowles and John Wooters at one time. People probably don't even remember him, but he was a big name with Peterson's Hunting Magazine. We had the people that knew what they were talking about, that they were our writers. They could substantiate their opinions and prove them and show you pictures and graphs, and the average guy, the average hunter, never would have known those. I just cannot be convinced that if Texas trophy hunters hadn't gotten started, the quality of the deer we have in Texas today would not be where it's at.
When Jerry started Texas Hunters Hotline and Texas Trophy Hunters, most of the stories were just, I killed a buck on the creek and this is the way I killed it. Jerry would admit this. The first Hunters Hotline, 18, 20 pages, wasn't a whole lot to brag about.
Horace Gore. I fired him 3 times and hired him back every time.
Gore, you're fired. And I'd say, is that you, Jerry? Why are you firing me? He said, I don't know, I'll think about that later on. 1 or 2 times I think it was necessary because of the way I was connected.
He would just go, hey, 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 I'm just misunderstood.
He'd always sweet talk me. He said, you know why I fired you? And I said, no, I don't. I still don't know why you fired me. He said, I don't either. Won't you come back to work?
He's been around this industry as long as anybody that's still living. I guarantee you that. And he, most of the time, knows what he's talking about.
So that's the way it was. That's Jerry Johnson for you. It was new, and it was something different. Jerry could see that what he was doing right, looked good, and what he was doing wrong didn't look so good. Well, that's kind of the way he went with the Journal. If I told you why I think that the Journal succeeded where other magazines failed, the first thing I'd have to say is because Jerry's idea of a good journal was a white-tailed journal.
Above all that's out there for the state of Texas in particular, I mean, I know we have members everywhere, but for the state of Texas in material, it's the fabric that binds together the hardcores of the state, and it always will be.
Where, for example, the black bass is the most important game fish in Texas, well, the white-tailed deer is the most important mammal in Texas. And he had his headset on a journal that consisted basically of white-tailed deer stories and white-tailed deer advertisements. That was the reason why it succeeded where everybody else fell by the wayside, most of them did. But Jerry succeeded because it was white-tailed deer.
I'd be a person to argue with if you said that the TV show didn't help our number of members, the TV show didn't help the attendees and the number of them coming to the shows, because it did. You're not going to get rich in the hunting television show business, but when you got a vehicle like Texas Trophy Hunters Association, it's sort of like the third leg of the stool, because it pushes the membership. And you can put your commercials in there about your extravaganzas. It pushes those. And each of those two push the TV show. It kind of completes the circle. We took Earl Campbell on his very first time he ever was on a piece of property to hunt deer. Bill Carter gave him a rifle, and it was a rifle that was designed to shoot elephants with. John Conley, that sings Rose Colored Glasses, and I are real close friends because of the association. We took Mark Chestnut on a deer hunt. Kevin Fowler to this day is almost like a little brother to me. Ted Nugent, been at our show. He got us so much free publicity, it's pathetic, just because he was there. Those were the good old days. I think one of the most popular among everybody that ever watched TV, not just the employees and whatever, was a program about Don Keller's mother, Gladys. I never had as much praise or comments made on any other program than that one, ever. Hit it right where it was, you know. She's 90 something. He killed a deer for our TV show. The best ones were the ones that told a really true story.
Closed captioning for Trophy Hunters TV is brought to you by MB Ranch King Blinds.
Things would be pretty much the same as they were if we hadn't come along. I mean, people still be shooting anything with a horn on his head and wouldn't care how old it was. And I mean, think about all of the products and so on and so forth that have been spawned out of this concept. And you still today, I'm sure Trophy Hunters today still has a problem with people trying to rip off the logo and make people believe that they're us or are better than us or better than, you know, and that's probably the greatest compliment anybody could have. Trying to steal your thunder. Must be doing something right. A few years back, we started these college chapters, and the A&M college chapter they're probably the biggest. Texas probably right behind them. I was very honored to find out that at A&M College, they created and named an endowment after me and Texas Trophy Hunters. I mean, that was a tearjerker right there when I was told that. I mean, that's pretty fancy acknowledgement. There are a lot of people that their life was not complete till they got that new issue. And that's what it's all about, you know? Just it was like a club, you know?
You know, in the beginning, Jerry Johnston had an idea that somewhere in the back of his mind, he wanted a select group of people who had the capability of pushing quality deer and trophy deer, and, you know, maybe they had ranches, maybe they had businesses, maybe they had the money to be a special individual. He wanted to call them, at first he called them life members. Then he thought that's not enough. Then he decided they're going to be platinum life members. The special group that are usually, in his opinion and our opinion too, they're usually leaders in the community or in the state. And he set up this platinum life membership. And it has grown through the years. I think it's been in existence at least, out of the 40 years, it's been in existence some 30 years, I guess. And so we're proud of our platinum life members. Last year, or maybe the year before last, but last year I think, one whole family down close to Houston, the whole family. The father, the mother, and about 3 daughters. They're all platinum life members. And the daughters have already said if they marry anybody, they're going to have to be platinum life members. So I'd say we're going to come right along with platinum life members in the next few years.
I didn't even have a doubt in my mind that this wouldn't work. I didn't have a doubt that it's going to work. I can truthfully say it, beyond the shadow of a doubt, we made a mark, you know? and a mark. I don't really want anybody to remember anything at all. Really, I mean, it's there. I mean, you don't have to hope that people remember. It's there. It's a piece of history, and that's good enough for me.
Trophy Hunters TV was brought to you by Ambush Firearms, Big & J Long Range Attractants, Kawasaki Mule Pro FXT, Nikon, the leader in sport optics, available at Academy Sports and Outdoors, Buck Knives, Edge of a Legend, and Kodiak Series cameras. Capture the wild.